So Wayward Son asked me a question. I'm going to put the question here. Let me read it. He said, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Just one. I don't need you to deflect and redirect. Just answer this one and only question. When did colonization end in the United States? So I answered him by saying this. Colonization by Americans continued until the 1900s, but it's over now. And either way, I'm Hispanic. My people stopped colonization in the 1700s, but colonization in the Americas stopped last century in the 1900s. Now let me ask you a question. Who is trying to colonize your people in the United States of America today? So Wayward Son is talking about the Native Americans in the United States being colonized. Okay, so in the 1500s when the Spanish came, they were colonizers, and they were colonizing the Native Americans roughly, brutally. That lasted through the 1500s, the 1600s, and even into the 1700s. Then there was a governor in New Mexico named Velez Cachupin. Look him up. Velez Cachupin was a governor who tried to make peace with the Apaches, the Navajos, the Comanches. He tried to make peace with the Pueblos, the Genizaros. He made peace with all of New Mexico, and while he was a governor of New Mexico, there was actually peace. Peace between the natives and Hispanics, peace between the natives and other natives. So as far as the Hispanic people go, colonization stopped in the United States in the 1700s. Now, in 1776, the American Revolutionary War kicked the British out of the United States. In the newly formed United States of America, the 13 colonies started to expand. By the 1830s, the United States spread all the way to Texas. By the 1840s, it spread to New Mexico, California. By the 1850s, it was from coast to coast. And colonization did continue. I'm sure you've heard of those Indian schools, like the reform schools that they used to have to get sent to. Now, these went on from the 1800s into the 1900s. I can't tell you an exact date of when colonization in the United States stopped, but I can tell you that it stopped. We're in 2025 today. There ain't no more colonization. There hasn't been no colonization in the 2000s, so I'm pretty sure it ended last century sometime in the 1900s. Which brings me back to my last question. Who is trying to colonize your people in the United States of America today? Which Native American tribes are being colonized in the United States of America today? None of them are. Here in New Mexico, every pueblo is its own sovereign nation with their own governor. They make their own rules. They say who and who can't be allowed on their reservation on certain times, or on any times actually. So any of you Native Americans who believe that you are being colonized still, or that people like me and Hispanic people who just speak the truth and teach history are colonizers, or we're colonizers because we have Hispanic blood, you're tripping, you're brainwashed, and you fucking need to study, bro. You obviously don't know what you're talking about. I obviously do. And I guess that's all I gotta say about that. Anyway, I hope you learned something new. So people keep saying that New Mexico should be part of Mexico because it once belonged to Mexico. Let me destroy that argument by stating a couple facts real quick. First of all, New Mexico was only part of Mexico for 35 years, from 1821 to 1846. From 1846 until currently, it's been part of the United States. Before 1821, it was part of the Kingdom of New Spain from 1598 till 1821, and before that, it belonged to the many various Native American tribes. So let me ask you this. Out of a couple thousand years of human habitation in New Mexico, only 35 years of those, it had belonged to Mexico. Over 200 years, it belonged to the Kingdom of New Spain. Over 150 years, it's belonged to the United States. So why should Mexico have a claim since they only had it for 35 years? And then it was home to the Native Americans for hundreds upon hundreds, thousands of years before the Spanish. So the Native American people who are still here and have been here for thousands of years are the ones who have been here the longest. They've been here so long that we don't even know exactly when they came. Then when the Spanish came with their conquest of New Mexico, that began in 1598 and it lasted until 1821. So they had claim to this land for over 200 years. The Native Americans have had claim to this land for thousands of years. Mexico only had claim for 35 years. And America, the United States of America, has now had claim for over 150 years. So tell me again, why should New Mexico belong to Mexico just because it belonged to it for 35 years in the 1800s? No, bro, no. Check your facts, do your research, and maybe you'll understand what I'm saying. Okay, so this one says, you and your parents weren't born or ever even visited Spain. Yet you claim Spanish, but somehow ashamed to say Mexicano. That's embarrassing. No, what's embarrassing is you have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about, obviously. So he starts off by saying, you and your parents weren't born or ever even visited Spain, which is true. I wasn't born in Spain. I never claimed to be born in Spain. I never said I was a Spaniard. I'm Hispanic from New Mexico. And how would you know if me and my parents had never visited Spain? But you're right, we haven't. First of all, my mom was in and out of prison my whole life. She got out and overdosed when I was 13 years old. My dad, I don't even know who the fuck he is, never knew him, never met him, don't even know who he is. Then he says, yet you claim Spanish. No, I don't. I claim Hispanic. There's a difference. The Spanish people came to the New World in 1492 and the years following that. Those were the Spaniards. People living in Spain today, those would be Spanish. Those would be Spaniards. We are Hispanos. We are Hispanics from New Mexico. Our ancestors are the Hispanics who came 400 or 500 years ago. But we also have mixed blood. We have ancestors of the Native Americans of New Mexico as well. Then he goes on to say, but somehow you're ashamed to say Mexicano. First of all, if I was a Mexican, I wouldn't be ashamed to say that I was a Mexican. But I'm not a Mexican. I'm a New Mexican. I'm a Hispanic. And as I said, I have Hispanic ancestry, which did come from Spain hundreds of years ago, but it mixed with the Native Americans here in New Mexico. I have Tesuque Pueblo in my blood as well. So why would I claim Mexican? The Pueblo Native Americans were never Mexica tribes. The Spanish, of course, were never Mexica tribes. I have German in my blood, and come on, they were never. So why would I claim Mexican? I'm from New Mexico, born and raised. Santa Fe, New Mexico, the oldest capital city in America. I grew up in Santa Fe, Albuquerque, España, northern New Mexico. And then he ends it by saying, that's embarrassing. What's embarrassing? That I don't claim to be something that I'm not? Half these kids out here claiming to be Chicanos or Mexicans, and they don't even know what the meaning is. Most of you guys are just Hispanics. And most of us, to be real, in New Mexico are mestizos. And not even that, we're coyotes. Like me, a mestizo would be Native American in Spanish. But I also have German, makes me a coyote. There is Mexican roots in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The Tlaxcalans, who came up with Juan de Oñate in 1598, built Barrio de Analco, which is a big chunk of where the plaza is right now. They built the oldest house in America, which is downtown Santa Fe, and they built the oldest church in America, which is downtown Santa Fe. They settled in the old barrio by the river, Barrio de Analco, and they were allies to the Spanish. They married the Spanish. They had children with the Spanish. So there is Mexica blood out here, but it isn't out here because it came from out here. It's out here because they came north with the Spaniards as allies, and they settled with the Spaniards. So their blood is out here for the same reason that the Spanish blood is out here. The natives who have been here for thousands of years, they're not Mexica. They are Native Americans, but they're not Native Mexicans. You guys trying to say that all indigenous people of the Americas are Mexicans, bro, that don't even make fucking sense. First of all, the Mexica only held pretty much Mesoamerica, we'll just say, even though it was less than that. We'll just say they had power over Mesoamerica, so the Mexica tribes would have been in that area. As far north as New Mexico is, they're not Mexica tribes. Now, somebody tried to point out at me, then why did they find stuff from the Mexica in the Anasazi ruins? They said, oh, it must have been because they're related. No, that's not right. What that tells me, and also I know because of history, is that they traded with the Mexica tribes. Ask any native that knows Native American history and they'll tell you there used to be trails before the Spanish, and they went from where the Anasazis are now, northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, and they traveled south and they traded with the Mexica. Maybe the Mexica traveled north and traded with the Anasazi. Either way, they traded. Just because you found objects from the Aztec in an Anasazi ruin doesn't mean that they were related. That tells me that they were trading with them. So somebody on a comment was trying to tell me that I sound like I hate Mexico. No, what I hate is people calling me a Mexican and thinking that I'm from Mexico because I'm from New Mexico. People calling me a Mexican when I'm an American. People calling me Mexican when I'm a Hispanic. And what else I hate is the Mexican indigenous people trying to say that they have claim over New Mexican land when that's not true. I've told you guys who the First Nations of New Mexico are. Those would be the Pueblos, the Navajos, the Comanches, the Kiowas, the Utes, before that the Anasazi. These tribes all have their own language, and not one of them is Nawa or even close to the Nawa dialect. Nawa is the language the Mexica people speak. And some Native Americans from New Mexico might speak Spanish, and some of their ancestors might speak Spanish. That's not because they're Mexican. That was because the Spanish people who came in 1598 and settled this land all the way till 1821. But anyway, I just wanted to state, no, I don't hate Mexico. I hate people thinking that I'm Mexican. And I hate Mexican indigenous people thinking they have claim over New Mexico, which they don't. I'm from the 505, New Mexico. Zia strong. I rep New Mexico with my whole heart. I rep my people. And I'm not gonna stand by and watch all these crybabies talk shit about New Mexico, saying that it's Mexican indigenous land and that we should give it back to Mexico because that don't make sense. Mexico only had claim to this land for 35 years. That would be like me saying, well, give it back to Spain. They had claim to this land for over 200 years before that. Give it back to the Native Americans. They had claim to this land for probably thousands of years. No, bro, no. This is the United States of America today, and it's been for over 150 years. I'm a New Mexican. I'm an American. Okay, I hate to be condescending, but I gotta school another ignorant idiot real quick. Now this one says, this is funny, a New Mexico native saying he's not Mexican. You're a Nuevo Mexicano. If you hate it so much, why don't you guys change the name? I don't want New Mexico to be called New Mexico. Now what the fuck does this even mean? Let me break it down little by little and see if we can find out. This is funny, a New Mexico native saying he's not Mexican. So what's so funny about a native New Mexican saying he's not Mexican? Do you know New Mexico is part of the United States, and you know it has been since 1846? You know it was only part of Mexico for 35 years, from 1821 to 1846? Did you know that it was the Kingdom of New Mexico, part of New Spain, from 1598 until 1821? And did you know before that, it was home to the Pueblos, the Apache, the Navajo, the Comanche, the Kiowa, before that the Anasazi. New Mexico is mostly home to the Pueblos, the Navajos, the Apaches. There's other tribes, but that's the main ones. And none of these tribes are Mexica. None of these tribes are Mexican indigenous tribes. So then he goes on to say, you're a Nuevo Mexicano. Yeah, I am. I'm a New Mexican. If you hate it so much, why don't you guys change the name? I don't hate it. I rep New Mexico with my whole heart and soul. So what the fuck are you talking about? Then he says, I don't want New Mexico to be called New Mexico. First of all, where the fuck are you from? Second of all, who gives a fuck what you think? Do you even know why it's called New Mexico? Do you think that it's called New Mexico because it's an extension of Mexico or something? No. The Spanish conquistador Juan de Oñate named it New Mexico. In 1598, when he came north, he thought that he would discover all the riches that Cortés and all the other conquistadores discovered, including his father, Cristobal de Oñate, in Mexico. So he ventured north and he thought that it would be a new Mexico, and it's always had that name. Of course, he wasn't fortunate with this. His settlement failed. He was eventually excommunicated from New Mexico for crimes against indigenous people, but he's the one that named it New Mexico. Not because it's part of Mexico, not because it's an extension of Mexico. Mexico didn't name it Mexico. It wasn't named Mexico after Mexico. Like when it became part of the United States, it didn't get that name. The name New Mexico came from the Spaniards in 1598, and it has nothing to do with Mexico. I was born and raised in New Mexico, northern New Mexico. My mom, my grandma, my great-grandma, they were all born in New Mexico. Our roots go back, and none of us are Mexican. It's funny to me how half you people on this internet shit don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Why don't you read a book? And if you don't want to read a book, you have a phone in front of you all the fucking time. I know your generation. Why don't you do some research, some proper research? Educate yourself before you flip through TikTok. You catch one or two of my sentences and then you start talking shit before you even know who I am or what I'm talking about. This is New Mexico. All you out-of-staters from out of state are talking shit about New Mexico on my comments saying fuck New Mexico and shit like that. You guys are just internet bangers. Why don't you come to New Mexico and say that shit? Why don't you go to Burque, go to the Duke City and say fuck New Mexico? You're not gonna make it out. Come to Santa, to anywhere where me or my people are, and say fuck New Mexico. Go up north to España, Peñasco, Taos, and try to say fuck New Mexico. If you make it home, you'll be in critical condition, but most likely you won't make it home. So all you fuckers that wanna talk shit about New Mexico from outside New Mexico, shut the fuck up or come to New Mexico and talk that shit. Somebody else in one of my comments tried to say, what does New Mexico have, Breaking Bad? First of all, that's a show that was just filmed in Albuquerque with a bunch of actors from outside of New Mexico, so what the fuck are you talking about? You think Breaking Bad portrays Albuquerque as it really is? No, it don't. I've been to Burque. I've lived in the war zone. I've also been to the penitentiary with the Burque boys. I know how Burque roll, and it's not like Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is lame-os, makes Burque look bad, but that's not Burque. Fool, go to Burque and you'll find out. Like the homie Johnny James said, fuck around and find out. Serio. So concerning colonization of the Native Americans in the United States of America, this person says, I don't think it has ever stopped if you think about it. They're Native Americans, the ones being deported too. I hate when people can't spell. I think they're trying to say the Native Americans are the ones being deported too, and the ones deporting them are people from Europe, British. Now what the fuck is wrong with people? What are they talking about? I don't understand this shit. Yeah, I'm sure indigenous people are getting deported, but not indigenous people to the United States. not indigenous people to New Mexico. You won't see the Pueblos getting deported. You won't see the Navajos, the Apaches, the Utes. You won't see these people getting deported. But you probably will see indigenous people from El Salvador, Guatemala, Colombia, and yes, Mexico, and all these other countries getting deported because they're not from the United States. They came into our country illegally, and so they're gonna get kicked the fuck out. And then they said the ones deporting them are from Europe, the British. Bro, that would be like telling me that I'm from Europe, I'm a Spaniard. No, bro. Some of them might have British ancestry. Most of them have so much mixed ancestry like we do. They're Americans. This is the United States. What the fuck don't people get about it? Does it matter where we came from? Of course it does. That's why I teach history. But we're not living 500 years ago. These people are acting like the American government, the White House, the United States of America are British. Don't you know they kicked the British out in 1776? Don't you know that's when the United States of America was born? Now, like I said, you have white people in the government, you have black people in the government. They have African descent. The white people probably have British descent, who knows? You have Hispanics in the government. This is the United States, the most diverse country in the world. And just because you're indigenous to the Americas, which is North and South America, and it's a lot of land, doesn't mean you have rights to the United States of America. Now, if you're indigenous to a place that is in the United States, like the Navajo, the Apache, the Pueblos, they're indigenous to New Mexico, then you belong here. And you're not going to be getting deported, bro. That's some bullshit. People are crazy, I'm telling you. Okay, so if you guys remember a few videos back, Wayward Son had asked me, when did colonization end in the United States? I answered him that it ended in the 1900s sometime, last century. And this person said, into the 1900s, maybe stop making content if you're not educated. In North America, the last residential school didn't close until 1997. The effects of colonization are present, and I think... ... So this person's trying to ridicule me for saying that it ended last century in the 1900s. Then they go on to say, the last school closed in 1997. 1997 is the 1900s. Fucking idiot. This one says, you know classroom history. I'm an autodidact, which means I self-educated myself. I only went up to the 8th grade and then I dropped out. I was too busy in the streets and in juvie to give a fuck about school. So you think I learned history and science and all this shit from school? No. When I did go to school, I didn't even pay attention. So I dropped out in the 8th grade, bro. That's the farthest I ever went in school. I didn't get my education, so I don't have classroom history. As a matter of fact, when I was in the penitentiary, which I spent the majority of my life in, I educated myself. I read hundreds of books. New Mexico history, history period. I read science. I read all kinds of stuff. So I educated myself in the penitentiary. I've educated myself since I've been out here. I've been out a little over 3 years now. And I self-educated myself in many different ways. So none of my education is the classroom education. I hate the classroom education, especially nowadays. I'm glad that Donald Trump took the DEI out of our federal government. DEI is what has them teaching transgender shit to our children in the schools. DEI has them hiring a cop with mental health issues, and then he goes and tases people and acts like a fucking idiot, and they can't fire him because equality. And I care about my daughter. I care about how she's raised, what she's taught, and by who she's taught by. So classroom history is the basics and bullshit. I remember in 7th grade they did teach us New Mexico history, but that was just the basics. All the stuff I've learned on my own, man, now I argue with teachers for not teaching the truth. So this guy says, it was Mexico first regardless who claimed New Mexico, so that makes you a native Mexican with your tribes. So this guy's talking about New Mexico. He's trying to say that it was Mexico first. Really? First of all, it was the tribes that belonged to the Navajo, the Apache, the Comanche, the Pueblos, the Utes, the Kiowas. Before that, the Anasazi. I might have forgot to mention some tribes because I don't know all of them off the top. But none of these were Mexica tribes. So how can you say it belonged to Mexico? First of all, it belonged to them. Then when the Spaniards came, it belonged to New Spain for over 200 years. Then the Americans came and took it, and then it became part of the U.S. And it's been part of the U.S. for 150 years. So no, it wasn't Mexico's first. It was Mexico's before it was the United States, yes, but only for 35 years. And before that, it was New Spain's for 250 years. Before that, it was the indigenous people's land for thousands of years. The Anasazi, the Navajo, the Apache, and the the Pueblos mostly. New Mexico is the Pueblos' original stomping ground, as well as the Navajo, Apache, and other tribes like I said, but none of these tribes are Mexica. None of these tribes were ever Mexica. So no, none of us from New Mexico are native Mexicans unless we came from Mexico. So all you guys trying to group the tribes from New Mexico and say that they're Mexican tribes, go ask them. Go ask them if they're Mexica tribes. Let them answer you. So since I'm a Hispanic from New Mexico, they've been calling me a racist and a colonizer. They've been saying I choose the white side over the brown side, shit like that. I've been trying to tell people out here in New Mexico, we have always repped the native and the Hispanic blood. We have always repped the Hispanic and native culture. And if you've listened to my history stories, I have always told both sides of the story. And just to show you an example, let me show you some of the decorations that we have at my house.
Amigos del norte de aquella linda región, ahora dedico mi canto que sale del corazón. Qué bonito es Santa Fe, qué bonito es Nuevo México. Chimayo tengo amigos, el Peñasco de a montón.
I just wanted to show you guys an example of how here in New Mexico, we have always repped the Native American and the Hispanic blood. In our decorations, in our history, in our art, because it's part of our culture now. We're mestizos, we're mixed. We're not Hispanic, we're not Native American, we're both. So this guy says, bro, the US took that land. Okay, and what's your point? Of course they took the land. That's why it's part of the United States. That's why it's been the United States since 1846. And who did they take it from? The Republic of Mexico. So yes, the US took New Mexico from Mexico. But who did Mexico take this land from? When they fought the revolution, they took this land from New Spain. Okay, let's go back further than that. Who did New Spain take this land from? New Spain took this land from the Pueblos, the Navajos, the Utes, the Comanches, the Apaches, and the indigenous tribes of New Mexico. So if you want to take it back to who was here first, then it would be the indigenous people of New Mexico. Why do you think we call them the First Nations? And then the Spanish people came to New Mexico in the 1500s and they mixed with the natives. So when I'm talking politically about how the Mexicans had their revolution and kicked Spain out, I'm not saying they kicked out all the Spanish people. I'm saying they kicked the government of Spain out of Mexico and became their own government, the Republic of Mexico. New Mexico was a northern state of that country. Now, like I said, this was only for 35 years and then the Americans took it. So New Mexico became part of the US. But when the Spanish government left Mexico, they went back to the Caribbean. Eventually, they left the Caribbean back to Spain. That doesn't mean the Spaniards left. Their descendants survived and stayed to this day. Us, we're descendants of both the indigenous people of New Mexico and the Spanish. We're mestizos, we're coyotes. Okay, so this one says, concerning the Anasazi, by the way, they were never part of the Mexica, but how about related to them, based on evidence found in Chaco, like feathers and cocoa? Oh, okay. You read that they found Aztec, Mexica, feathers, and cocoa in Anasazi Pueblos, and it makes you think that they're related? No. As I said before, there was trails before the Spanish. A lot of the Spanish trails were forged out of trails that were already there, that were made before that from the Native Americans. What do you think these trails were for? Like the Turquoise Trail, haven't you heard of that? Anyway, they had these trails and they would trade. They traded with the Mexica. This is known in history. The Anasazi and the Mexica were known to trade with each other. That would be like you saying you found my jacket in your house after I was partying there last night. So now you think we're related. Okay, so I've gotten a few comments in the past saying I'm a Fallon, not a historian. That I'm a lowlife. I haven't accomplished anything since I'm a Fallon. Now I know, based on, my tattoos, that people judge me, and based on that I've been to the penitentiary and that I got 9 felony convictions, how can you say I haven't accomplished anything? Yes, I am a convicted felon. I have 9 felony convictions on my record, and those are just the convictions. I've had other felonies that I've got thrown out. I got out of the penitentiary a little over 3 years ago. I had 3 years probation. I finished it. And I've been taking care of my daughter and doing good. I took care of my daughter since she was 1. She's not even my blood daughter. Her dad died from alcohol. I was with her mom. I've been raising her. I married her mom. And I've been raising her ever since. Now, me and my wife are separated and currently going through a divorce. And I'm still taking care of my daughter. She's right here with me right now. So I've been raising a daughter for 3 years. That's not even mine by blood. But she's my daughter now. She's my baby. But my whole point is, I raised a daughter that I didn't have to. I got off drugs. I used to be a drug addict bad. I used to do heroin, coke, meth, you name it. Now all I do is smoke weed. Every now and then I'll drink a beer with my grandpa. And I also educate the people of New Mexico. I've accomplished more than a lot of you men out there. You guys can't even take care of your own kids. Now I'm not the type to take care of another man's kids if he's alive and well and able to do it. I'm not a simp. I'm taking care of my daughter because her dad died when she was 1 year old. And when I was married to her mom these last 3 years, me and my baby girl got close and now she's my baby. Now, let me tell you why I call myself Trajity the Hood Historian. My name was Trajity. I made music. I'm a rapper. I still make music. And my name is Trajity. Now, my street name and my prison name is a different name. I'm not going to say what it is because that's not internet business. But we'll just say my stage name is Trajity. Now, there was somebody from Burke, I forget his name, but he was from Martinez Town, and he told me that I should start calling myself the Barrio Historian. I changed it to the Hood Historian, so Trajity the Hood Historian, that's where it came from. I didn't name myself that. I'm not pretentious. I'm not over here, oh, I'm a historian. No, bro. I'm an autodidact who self-educated myself. I'm from New Mexico, so I know my history, my culture, my traditions. I study and research because I love New Mexico. And then I teach it to the people of New Mexico. So somebody was asking me how I felt about these Mexican protests. I thought I saved the comment so I could reply to it, but I guess I didn't. But I still want to talk about it. First of all, I want to start off by saying this is the United States of America. You have the freedom to protest. Anybody does. This is a free country. So I'm okay with people protesting for whatever they want. Even though it bugs me sometimes, I don't care. You're free to do what you want to do. But when I'm watching them burning the flags and disrespecting America by stomping on our flags and then waving their foreign countries' flags around, that's where they lost me. It's disrespectful to be burning our flags, stomping on our flags. It's disrespectful to our veterans like my grandpa who fought in the Vietnam War. But I just want to say, shout out to the ones who are protesting in New Mexico because I haven't seen disrespect on that level out here. I see people out there waving their Mexican flag because it's mostly Mexicans out here who are protesting. So they're waving their Mexican flag and they're repping Mexico because they love Mexico, but they also love America. So they won't burn our flag and disrespect it. And I think that's okay. But when I see them on the news in LA and in other places in California burning our flag, stomping on it, there was this one lady who took down an American flag and raised a Mexican one. And when the cops got there, she was trying to tell them, this is my tierra, this is my land. That's almost like a call out for war. Taking down our flag, putting yours up and saying this is your land. Now that's disrespectful. Now this next message is for you people who are protesting in that kind of disrespectful manner by stomping on our flag, burning it, saying fuck America. Then you're over there hollering your foreign nation's country, whatever it is, waving your flags around, saying you hate America. That don't even make sense. So if you hate America so much, then why are you here? If you hate America, get off EBT, get off Medicaid, get off Social Security, get off housing, get off all the benefits that you're on, that America gives you freely by our taxpayer dollars. If you really hate it, then why are you reaping our benefits? If you really hate America, then what the fuck are you even doing here? If you hate America so much, but yet you love your country so much, then what the fuck are you even doing here running from your country? Why don't you go back to your country, protest against your government so they can make your country better so that way you don't have to run from it? But to come over here to the United States of America and make this your home, and then to get all mad and start burning our flags and saying fuck America, that makes us not give a fuck about you. Get the fuck out there. And why do you even want to be here? Why do we want you here? We don't need people here who hate our country. We need patriots and people who love our country here. And before you make it a race thing, understand, illegal immigration isn't about Mexico. Every time you hear them talk about the Mexican border, you think Mexico because that's where the border's at. There's people that are coming from all over the world. There's people who are here from the Middle East, terrorist organizations and everything. There's people that are here from China. There's people here from India. There's people who came through the open borders these last 4 years who are from all over the world. So it's not a race thing. It's a national security thing. I have a daughter. I care about my daughter. So when I see all this human trafficking, these little girls getting kidnapped, women getting raped, innocent civilians getting murdered, then of course that gets me mad. And that's when I say fuck them. They all need to go. And people on my Facebook have been trying to tell me that They're deporting Native Americans. Bro, I'm from New Mexico. We're surrounded by pueblos. The Navajos, the Apaches are out here. I haven't heard or seen one Native American getting harassed or deported by ICE. So I won't believe that until I see it with my own eyes. Don't believe the rhetoric. Don't believe this bullshit that the internet tells you just because somebody's saying it. You better believe what you see with your own eyes. So you see certain illegal immigrants getting deported that aren't criminals, right? That's what Tom Homan called collateral damage. He tried to warn the Democratic mayors and governors not to go against ICE. All he was asking is for his ICE agents to be led into the jails and prisons to get the criminals who were arrested that are illegal immigrants so they could deport them back. Most of these guys are sex offenders, murderers, shit like that. He said if the government don't let him, he's going to end up having to wait till they get out. Then he's going to have to hit the address wherever they're at, wherever they can find them. And then they're going to have to run everybody else's name who's in that house. So there's going to be everybody getting deported when all they were looking for is that one person. So you guys can't be blaming Trump for all this shit that's going on. You guys got to blame the Democratic governors and the Democratic mayors who are in charge of your sanctuary cities and states. Like New Mexico, Santa Fe, Albuquerque. These are sanctuary cities. New Mexico is a sanctuary state. But a sanctuary for who? For rapists, for murderers, for sex offenders. There's good illegal immigrants and there's bad illegal immigrants. They wanted to deport the bad illegal immigrants. But by these sanctuary cities just not telling ICE when they were getting out and releasing them back into our streets, into these sanctuary cities so they can molest and rape our children some more. Now ICE has to go hit their neighborhoods to get them, and anybody else they run across becomes collateral damage. So some good illegal immigrants, who I don't think really deserve to be deported, are being deported. But Tom Homan tried to warn the Democratic states, the Democratic cities, to not oppose him, to just let him go to the jails and prisons and get the criminals, which they didn't. So now he's hitting the neighborhoods, they're raiding, and they're getting a lot of people who shouldn't be deported. But illegal is illegal. When you cross the border illegally, it's a federal charge. Now, I'm not a cop, so I'm not trying to side with the law like that, but I'm just saying that it is what it is. Now, if I go to Mexico as an illegal immigrant and I go try to live there, try to make money, try to do whatever, whatever benefits I think I see in Mexico at the time, say I tried to do that, and then they caught me and I didn't have my papers and I wasn't a Mexican citizen, but I was living there, they would deport me too. That's not just Mexico. That's not just the USA. That's Canada. That's Asia. That's Israel. That's all around the world. England. Most of these countries you can't even go to. Me as a felon, I can't go to England. I can't go to Spain. I can't go to a lot of places. I could go to Mexico. Anyway, my whole point in this, somebody was asking me how I felt about the protest. That's how I feel about them. It's okay to protest, but it's not okay to burn our flags and disrespect our country. I think that should be considered treason. And you should be a traitor if you do that. Never let into our country again. Oh yeah, and before I go, let me do this real quick. Make America great again. Are you guys hurt because Donald Trump is winning? I watch the news and see him winning every day. Seeing these Democrats crying like a bunch of babies, it's funny. Anyway, this dude's education is not accurate. UNM graduate, Santa Fe resident for life, family history since 1592. Here. My history isn't accurate? Okay. Oh, you're a UNM graduate. Oh, that's what makes you so smart and professional. Actually, that explains everything. You're a UNM graduate? So you're trying to tell me you went to one of the worst colleges in the worst state for education, and that makes you so qualified? You're a Santa Fe resident for life? See? I told you guys college was a scam. This person thinks he's so smart because he's a UNM graduate. Ooh, you graduated from college and that makes your history more accurate than mine. No, I'm an autodidact. I've read hundreds of books. I've probably read more books on New Mexico than you. I've made hundreds upon hundreds of videos, hundreds upon hundreds of different stories. From the Native Americans to the Hispanic to the Wild West days. And then he goes on to say he's a Santa Fe resident for life. Well, so am I, bro. I was born here. I was raised here. I'm still here. Family history since 1592. Ooh, your family goes back to the Spanish conquest. Well, my blood goes back even further because I have blood from Tesuque Pueblo in my veins. I also have blood from the Spanish conquistadores who came in 1598. So where are you even pulling 1592 out of? 1598 is when the Spanish first colonized New Mexico and when they first settled here. Yes, Coronado went on an expedition in 1540. Castaño de Sosa went on one 1591, something like that. But these were just expeditions. Nobody settled here. It wasn't until Juan de Oñate in 1598. So if you had family history from the Spanish colonization, it would have been from 1598 and onward, not 1592. Look at me. I'm some dumb idiot. I'm only 36 years old. I spent most of my life in the streets, juvie, prison, and I'm still smarter than a college graduate. Don't go to college if you don't have to, bro.